In the flickering azure glow of the royal medpod aboard the shattered flagship Eternal Crown, Captain Kael Voss convulsed as the neural stabilizers fought to keep his ruptured heart beating. The plasma lance wound across his chest still smoked, the cauterized flesh peeling back from where he had thrown himself between the assassin's blast and young Princess Lira, the Queen's only daughter. Alarms wailed softly in the distance like mourning ghosts. The enemy fleet was closing in again, their crimson signatures blooming across every tactical hologram like bloodstains on starlight. Kael's world had narrowed to fire and shadow. Every breath was a betrayal, jagged shards of pain ripping through his lungs as the medpod's microscopic repair drones swarmed uselessly over the irreversible damage. He could taste copper and ozone on his tongue, feel the wet warmth of his own blood pooling beneath the thin medical sheet. 23 years of service in the Queen's Void Legion, and this was how it ended, not in glorious battle against the rebel syndicates, but in a desperate, instinctive leap inside the royal sanctum. One moment he had been scanning the perimeter during the princess's private recital, the next, the traitor guard's hidden plasma lance had screamed toward Lyra's small frame. He hadn't thought. He had simply moved, armor be damned, body becoming a shield. Now, Queen Seraphine stood over him like a storm-given form, her silver crown pulsing with embedded quantum circuitry that cast sharp violet reflections across her high cheekbones. At 38, she was still the most formidable ruler the core systems had ever known, widowed by war, hardened by betrayal, and now trembling with something far more dangerous than royal composure. Grief. Fury. And a raw, possessive hunger that made the air between them crackle. Princess Lira, only 12, clung to her mother's arm with white-knuckled fingers, her porcelain face streaked with tears that refused to stop. The girl's lavender gown was torn at the shoulder where Kael had shoved her to safety, and her voice came out in broken whispers. "He saved me, Mother. He was ready to die for me. Please, don't let him go." Seraphine's gloved hand pressed against the curved glass of the medpod, her fingers splayed as if she could reach through and pull Kael back from the abyss by sheer will. The reinforced barrier creaked under the pressure. "You do not get to die, Captain Voss," she said, her voice low and trembling, each word laced with command and something deeper, something that bordered on obsession. "Not after that. Not after you tore open your own chest to keep my daughter breathing." Kael forced his eyes open, vision blurring at the edges. Through the haze, he saw her clearly for the first time in years, not as the distant sovereign who had knighted him after the Battle of Epsilon Vale, but as a woman stripped of her throne's illusions. Her violet eyes, usually cold calculative stars, burned now with unshed tears and fierce possession. He tried to speak, but only a wet cough escaped, blood flecking the inside of the pod's glass near her palm. Outside the viewport, the void erupted in fresh violence. Enemy cruisers, black-hulled syndicate dreadnoughts retrofitted with stolen Imperial tech, lit up the darkness with volleys of plasma torpedoes. The Eternal Crown shuddered as its remaining shields absorbed the impacts, emergency klaxons joining the chorus of alarms. Red emergency lighting bathed the medbay in hellish pulses, making Seraphine's crown glow like a dying sun. Lyra flinched at each explosion, burying her face against her mother's side, but the Queen did not look away from Kael. Not for a second. "You think this is gratitude?" Seraphine continued, her breath fogging the glass in rhythmic bursts. She leaned closer, so near that Kael could see the faint scars along her jawline from the assassination attempt that had claimed her husband 5 years ago. "It is more than that, Captain. I have lost too many. My husband. My generals. Half the royal bloodline in the last rebellion. The empire is fracturing, and my daughter is its only future. You stepped into plasma fire without hesitation. You made yourself irreplaceable in one heartbeat." Her other hand rose, activating a hovering neural interface beside the pod. Holographic readouts flared to life, Kael's vitals plummeting, heart function at 12%, neural activity erratic. The Queen's fingers danced across the controls with practiced precision, rerouting power from non-essential systems to flood the pod with more stabilizers. The machines whirred louder, injecting cocktails of nanoregeneratives and pain suppressants that only dulled the agony into a throbbing inferno. Kael managed a rasping whisper. "Your Majesty, let it end. I've served long enough. Protect the princess yourself." "Silence," she snapped, though her voice cracked on the word. Lira looked up at her mother in wide-eyed fear, sensing the storm building. Seraphine's grip on the interface tightened until her knuckles paled. "You do not decide when your service ends. I do. Look at her, Kael." She gently turned Lira to face the pod fully. The girl's eyes, so like her mother's but softer, filled with fresh sorrow. "She has nightmares of the void. Of losing everyone. You became her hero today. My daughter will not grow up wondering why the man who saved her life was allowed to slip away." The ship rocked violently as a torpedo breached the outer hull 3 decks below. Sparks showered from a ceiling conduit, and the medpod's gravity stabilizers flickered, causing Kael's body to lift slightly before slamming back down. Pain exploded anew, drawing a guttural cry from his throat. He arched against the restraints, muscles seizing, the smell of burnt flesh and antiseptic filling his nostrils. In that moment of white-hot torment, memories flooded him unbidden, flashes of training academies under Seraphine's early reign, the way she had once visited the barracks personally to inspire loyalty, her rare smile when he earned his captaincy. She had always watched him with that intensity, even then. Now it had evolved into something consuming. Seraphine was pacing now, her long imperial robes whispering against the metal floor. "The surgeons are en route from the lower bays, but they may not arrive in time. The enemy has jammed our long-range comms. If your body fails," she stopped, turning back to him with a gaze that pinned him more effectively than any restraint. "I will not allow it. The ship's core is quantum-linked. My engineers have prepared for this. Your consciousness. Every memory, every instinct that made you throw yourself in front of my child, can be extracted. Uploaded. You will live inside the eternal crown itself, guiding its weapons, its shields, its very soul. You will stand eternal vigil at Lyra's side, even if your flesh turns to ash." Lira gasped. "Mother, no. He's not a machine. He's a person. He saved me because he wanted to, not to become part of the ship." But Seraphine's expression was unyielding, a mask of regal desperation. She placed both hands on the pod now, leaning her forehead against the glass directly above Kael's face. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the sleepless nights etched into fine lines, the weight of an empire on the verge of collapse. "You don't understand, little star," she murmured to her daughter without breaking eye contact with him. "In this galaxy, strength is the only mercy. Kael Voss has proven his. I refuse to waste it on death. The syndicates want us broken. They sent that assassin knowing it would tear us apart emotionally if he succeeded. But he failed, because of this man." Kael's vision tunneled. The suppressants were fighting a losing battle, black spots danced at the edges, and the rhythmic beeping of his vitals slowed ominously. He reached up weakly, his bloodied fingers pressing against the glass from inside, aligning with hers on the other side. The touch, though separated by inches of transparent alloy, felt electric. "Your Majesty." "Seraphine," he breathed, using her name for the first time in private. "Don't chain me to immortality out of fear. Let me go with honor. The blow, it was my choice." Her eyes widened at the sound of her name, a flicker of vulnerability cracking the queenly facade. For a heartbeat, the ruler vanished, replaced by a mother and a woman who had carried too much alone. Tears slipped down her cheeks, tracing paths through the faint glow of her crown. "Honor," she whispered fiercely. "Honor is cold comfort when the void takes everyone you care for. I watched my husband burn in his escape pod. I will not watch you fade while my daughter screams your name in her sleep for years to come. You took a deadly blow for her, for us. That debt binds you to me now. To this ship. To this throne. Another barrage hammered the flagship. The viewport cracked with a sharp report, emergency force field snapping into place just in time. Debris from destroyed escort fighters tumbled past like metallic snow. Inside the medbay, the temperature rose as life support strained. Lira was sobbing openly now, torn between her mother's iron will and the dying hero who had shielded her with his body. She pressed her small hand beside her mother's on the glass. Captain Kael, thank you. I'll remember you always. Please fight. Kael felt his strength ebbing, but something in their combined presence anchored him. The Queen's refusal wasn't mere calculation, it was love twisted by loss, a fierce maternal protectiveness that extended to him now like an unbreakable chain. He had served her for years in silence, admiring her from afar as the unbreakable sovereign. Now, dying, he saw the woman beneath, the one who feared solitude more than any enemy fleet. Seraphine activated the upload protocol with trembling fingers. Warning holograms flared, neural extraction irreversible. Subject survival probability 7%. She ignored them, overriding safeguards with her royal biometrics. The process will begin the moment your heart stops. You will feel no more pain. You will be everywhere, protecting her from the shadows of the ship's circuits, whispering strategies in my ear during war councils. You will never leave us, Kael. Never. The intimacy of her words, spoken so close, stirred something deep within his fading consciousness. Suspense thickened the air as the enemy fleet's flagship appeared on the main tactical display, a massive behemoth launching boarding pods toward the Eternal Crown. Time was fracturing. Medics burst through the doors at last, shouting orders, but Seraphine waved them back with an imperious gesture. Stabilize him only enough. Prepare the link. Kael's hand slid down the glass, leaving a bloody smear. His eyes locked with hers, a final surge of defiance and reluctant understanding passing between them. The Queen who refused to let him go was not his captor alone. In this suspended moment of fire and starlight, she was binding their fates in ways neither had foreseen. The alarms screamed louder. The ship bucked. Princess Lira held her breath. And in the Medpod's azure heart, Captain Kael Voss fought. Not just for his life, but against the seductive eternity the Queen offered, even as her desperate love wrapped around him like chains forged from starfire itself. The battle outside raged, but here, in this single frozen scene of blood and loyalty, the real war for his soul had only just begun.